So let's talk about the city council. So the city council is going to be the method by which all legislation occurs. Obviously, there is precedent setting court cases, right? And those can still enact common law. But in terms of direct legislation, NoPixel is going to have a representative government. So what does that mean? It means that legislation that different groups want to push will not just flow through the DOJ any longer. The goal here is to have representation for pretty much every group, right? So whoever you are on NoPixel in terms of a character, your character will feel like, or at least they should feel like, the goal is that they have someone speaking on their behalf in the city council. So basically, this is some background just talking about the fact of the sanguine conflict, the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back, continues the cascading erosion of trust in the government that leads to a full collapse, which is sort of the lore that we've agreed upon. Talking about how we need to like move on and like, you know, find better ways to operate. Talking about how we lost faith in the very social contract, the core of our ideals. You know, basically like no one had any faith in anything anymore, and everything fell apart, right? So we now have a representative democratic system of government. So it's a city council, which will be a panel made up of 8 representatives. So they are the following: the sitting mayor. Should do this. How do I do this? Reports, city council. So the sitting mayor. We'll leave that how it is. I like how it is. So there's 8 roles. So there's the sitting mayor, the chief of staff, the deputy mayor, the chief justice of the DOJ, the head of the bar association, the healthcare liaison, the law enforcement liaison, and the treasurer. Each role has their own function. The system ensures that one voice does not drown out the many. So Olsen, that will be addressed here. So there are checks and balances built into this system. So that's a good question. So the way that this is going to work is the mayor's seat is elected via majority vote from the citizens in a quarterly election. We found in 3.0 that mayors in 2.0 did not have a great amount of time in a 2-month period to really get established and do anything. And so the idea is that a 3-month period will give them time to actually do something in their first term. So they don't feel locked into having to get 2 terms just to get anything done. So these seats will be on a quarterly basis. The mayor seat still handles the same duties in terms of the day-to-day, like setting taxes, government payroll, the oversight of businesses, and other sundry managerial duties. The chief of staff seat will be selected and appointed by the mayor. So if you win the election, a really good bonus is that you get 2 votes on the city council, right? Because you're appointing a chief of staff, and that person, unless there's some crazy political issue, is going to likely vote with you. So this position will carry out the mayor's goals on a day-to-day basis, acting as an evangelist for the mayor's principles. So these 2 are kind of like a voting block already, right? So you already have 2 votes. The deputy mayor seat will be held by the runner-up of the mayoral election. So this is meant to provide like some really cool RP. It also means that the people who pushed for the second candidate, the runner-up in the mayor election, if it was really close, they now have more of a voice. Because there were some elections in 3.0 where it was like, you know, somebody lost the mayor vote by like 15 votes, right? And then it's like, well, fuck, 48% of the city wanted this guy, and now they don't get shit. And it's also just really good political RP because you'll see soon how the voting blocks work out. These 3 might have to work together to get shit done, right? Which is interesting because these 2 might have a really like contentious election. So there's really good dramatic House of Cards style roleplay potential all in here, right? Chief Justice seat will oversee the Department of Justice. This seat will be appointed by the federal government. No news there. Same as always, Chief Justice is an OOC non-corrupt position. It's a balanced position for the server. So, you know, that's something where you're not allowed to be corrupt. It has more responsibility than just the roleplay element. So you are, you know, locked into sort of acting in the best interest of civilians or whatever. Treasurer seat. This will be applied for. Interviews will take place led by the Chief Justice of the DOJ as well as an exploratory committee. This position will be merit-based, and the applicant's competency in fiscal policy and budget oversight will be key to their hiring. This is another sort of, we'll call it a balance position. This is a check and balance on these 3, right? So the idea is in 3.0 corruption, because there wasn't really a mechanism to stop it and there wasn't really a mechanism to slow it down. So the idea here is that if the mayor wants to embezzle money, or the deputy mayor, or the chief of staff, or some combination of these three, they have to get it through the treasurer. And if the treasurer is an OOC non-corrupt position, selected by an OOC non-corrupt position, it means that you have to be clever with what you do here, right? So if any of these guys are going to be corrupt and try to get money embezzled, or try to, like, you know, get one over on the government, it'll have to be done in an intelligent way that's more clever and less sort of brute force. And so that's reflected in the balance between this non-corrupt OOC position versus these corruptible in-character positions, right? So the head of the bar association will be the civilian oversight board, and he'll head that group, right? This position will also be OOC non-corrupt for very obvious reasons, right? You don't want a corrupt lawyer overseeing PD punishments. That just sounds fucking ridiculous. So these 3 seats are OOC non-corrupt, right? These 3 seats can be corrupt, right? So you can see a very clear breakup of how, you know, legislation will get pushed, who will push for what, how, and why, right? I'm intentionally just not answering the phone right now because I want to get through this. So you can see, like, there's a very good opportunity for RP here, where if these people want to push something through that's like kind of sneaky or embezzling or whatever, they'll have to convince some of these people to go along with them, right? Now, finally, the final 2 seats are going to be healthcare liaison, which is a majority vote by those in the healthcare field. So it'll be an internal vote limited to doctors, EMS, and psych. And then the same with law enforcement, who will be elected via majority vote by members of PD and members of the Department of Corrections. So those are the 8 seats. Now, you'll notice each seat has 1 vote. In the event of a tie, the mayor's vote will decide any outcome. Now, finally, the federal government does have veto power. So if management wants to step in and veto something, they can. But it can only be exercised against decisions commanding less than 6 of the 8 seats. So if something barely passes and the federal government thinks that it's, like, bad for the city or whatever, then they could veto it. But if something passes with 6 of 8 votes voting for it, then the federal government can't do anything about it. City council will meet regularly to discuss proposed ideas, legislation, and challenges that come their way, uniting voices from across the state for the health and benefit of the group, blah, 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 blah. Does this give the council impeachment powers? Impeachment powers are discussed in the Constitution, and impeachment would happen under the DOJ as a hearing like it did before. That would be one of the roles of the Chief Justice as a OOC appointed non-corrupt position, is to oversee impeachment hearings for corruption, it's negligence, etc. Because you could be a treasurer and be OOC non-corrupt and still be grossly negligent, right? You could be, like, really bad at your job. That's fine. That's not like corruption. Any plans on how much time the federal government had to veto when the issues 3.0's getting the OK often took for a long time? Yeah, that's because all legislation went through the Senate. That's why it took a long time. And it was always about trying to get feedback. Here, it would only come up in very rare, I don't think that'll be an issue at all. So yeah, that is the city council. And I think that it's fairly well balanced, because you can just, if you just mock up election scenarios in your head, right, which is what I tried to do when I was working on this. Aleko, thanks, man. So one of the things you can mock up in your head is, like, let's say the mayor puts forth legislation regarding, some minor thing, right? And it goes kind of against, like, law enforcement and doctors, right? So automatically there's 2 votes against them. Let's say the deputy mayor, even though he disagreed with the mayor in the election, agrees on this small thing, right? So now you've got 3 in favor, 2 against, 3 to vote, right? So these guys, if they can work together, have a very strong voting block. Because remember, the tie goes to the mayor, right? So if these 3 work together, all you need is 1 vote of these 5 civilian government roles to get something through, right? So it's a very good chance for stuff to get pushed.
And